In this knife talk video, I'm going to be doing an overview of my carry rotation, or the knives that I carry relatively often, some more often than others, but basically all the knives that I don't keep for non-utility reasons. So I do have some knives that I'm not going to show today. Some of them I don't use because they have sentimental value, some because I want to keep them as examples of what certain other knives look like brand new, and then some like the Rendezvous knives because that you can't really replace them. So to start out here, I'm going to look at the fixed blades, and I've had a lot of different fixed blades. I really like fixed blades, and I enjoy them. I think that they're the classic style of knife, the most traditional, I guess. But the thing is, even with my job, I don't work in an office at all. I would be able to carry a fixed blade. It's not that I couldn't. No one at my job would get mad at me or make me lose my job or anything like that. It's just not the most easy to carry a lot of the time. Sometimes when I have to deal with members and clients and stuff, I don't want to have a fixed blade on my belt. Now I do sometimes carry the smaller ones at work, but generally I don't carry these as much. But to start out here, this little one, the littlest of the fixed blades, kind of rough looking. This is actually the first knife that I made. It's a Chisel Grind, as you can see. I made a couple knives when I was in college. I don't have access to the tools, really any tools anymore. So I haven't made any in a while. But this one, it was the first one I made, has an OD green epoxy soaked paracord handle. I actually like the design, to be honest. It's like a little spear point bird and trout. I've used it for hunting, for skinning, general utility. It's really easy to carry because I carry it scout carry or horizontal carry, and it fits well on the belt. The sheath is really no wider than a larger belt, like a 2-inch belt. I made the sheath also, works pretty well. One of the things that I had a lot of trouble with when I did make a few knives was the sheaths. So this one turned out well, but a lot of them turned out really, really poorly. But actually comes down to a pretty thin edge. So it does slice well, has a nice guard so you don't have to worry about your finger slipping up. And the handle feels pretty good for just being a paracord handle. Like I say, I've used it for skinning and stuff. So it's just a little knife. It's $10.95. I wish I had checked before I started making this video, but it was heat treated. A member on Blade Forums generously heat treated this and a couple other knives for me for free, just to help me out get started. And I'm gonna look it up and put it in the description there who that was. He's a custom knife maker, so definitely check his stuff out once I put the the name of his knives and stuff in the description there. But I appreciate that, and it's a knife I've enjoyed. Again, just a kind of rough first stab at making a knife. So kind of moving up in size, this is a Bruce Culberson, what he called a necker, and this is one that I won. It was the first knife that I won in a giveaway on Blade Forums. So I've had it for a few years, and I've used it a lot. I really like it. It has 52-100 steel, which is a ball bearing steel. It's not a stainless steel. As you can see, it has a good bit of patina, but it does have some chromium, so it patinas in kind of an interesting way. It doesn't patina exactly like 1095 and things like that. The handle is Cocobolo, or Cocobolo, I'm not exactly sure how you say it, but it's a nice looking handle. It has some nice character grain in it, and it feels really good in the hand. So this is a nice size. You know, again, you can use it for pretty much anything. It's definitely a good enough size for skinning, mostly smaller game, but you know, if you need it for bigger game also. And I've used it for that some. And then just, you know, general utility use. And this is not the sheath that came with it. It came with a neck carry Kydex sheath that is in my knife box. This is a really nicely made pocket sheath. I'm gonna again put the name of the guy in the company who makes these in the description. I believe it's Arizona. AZSlipcraft. AZSlipcraft on Instagram. So just the letter AZ and then Slipcraft on Instagram. So check him out. This is really nice. What it is it's a custom made to this knife friction fit blade cover. Okay, so I actually didn't send the knife in for him to make this. It was actually he made it as a test, right, as a prototype, and I got it for free, so I really appreciate that. He makes really nice stuff in general. He makes nice slip joint pocket slips. So check his stuff out. This is super high quality, and it actually has made the knife more enjoyable to carry for me because it's so low profile. Really nice leather, nice stitching. It fits perfectly. It's, you know, you can get it out easily, but it's not going to come out accidentally, and it does fit perfectly. And it's really impressive to me that he could do that basically from me sending pictures of this knife along with measurements. So I'm not 100% sure if he's offering that service, if it, you know, is something that he's still offering, but if he is, definitely check it out. Very nice pocket sheath or pocket blade cover for a smaller fixed blade. So nice kind of Keppert style necker from Bruce Culberson that I've used a lot with nice materials, and then definitely a little bit of an upgrade with this blade cover. Moving on, this is the Cold Steel Boon. So kind of a budget Tonto from Cold Steel. It has AUS-8A steel, so a good steel. I think Cold Steel does a really good job with this steel. It's pretty easy to sharpen. It holds an edge relatively well. It's not a super steel by all means, but being that this knife is definitely, you should be able to get it between $30 and $40. You know, you can't really expect too much of a super steel, and it is a budget knife. It's something that I had one of these like really early on when I first started, you know, being able to buy knives and stuff. I actually broke it by batoning it, trying to baton it through a pallet of wood that had been sitting in the rain and sun for probably years. So it was really hard wood, and it did actually break the blade in half. I ended up grinding it down and making a real short blade, and then kind of like a mini knife with the part that broke off. I don't know where those are anymore. I probably just threw them away. But a nice knife for a few reasons. One, it's very, very thin. So even the sheath, you can see, it's a thin knife. It's relatively easy to carry for the length, which I think it's about 5.5 inch blade length. Very thin, slender, but because it has a little bit of a palm swell here, it feels good in the hand. You can use it, you know, really cut stuff, and it you know, doesn't have hot spots and things like that. I like that it has a little guard, but not so much of a guard that it, you know, becomes so you can't, you know, grip on the spine of the knife if you need to and things like that. It has a hollow grind and then a flat grind up at the tip, which makes it slice pretty well. It's not super thick like I think some of Cold Steel's Tontos are. So still slices well, but has a stronger tip because of the flat grind up at the top, and just generally a good you know, work budget knife. I'm not sure about this. I remember reading what Boon meant. I think it does mean something like worker or work knife or something like that. And then it comes with a sheath. It used to come with a sheath with a plastic clip. The plastic clip on mine pulled out constantly, didn't really work. On the older one I had. This one came with a metal clip. The metal clip was higher quality than the plastic clip, but because it was smooth metal, it just slid off. Like when you went to take the knife out of the sheath, if it, you know, wasn't on your belt or in your pocket or your waistline, the knife didn't come out of the sheath just, you know, slid off of your belt or waistline. So I took the metal clip off and put this on. Carry it scout carry. It is a little bit big for that. I might get a different kind of clip, but we'll see. Just a nice, good budget knife if you'd like a Tonto fixed blade. This one is the Blind Horse Knives Woodsman Pro. So this company doesn't exist anymore, but it's split into two different companies, Battle Horse Knives and LT Wright Knives. They make, honestly, pretty much the same style and construction build knives. So, you know, if you'd like a knife like this, check out either of those companies. They're making the same thing. They actually still, I believe, make the Woodsman Pro. I think Battle Horse Knives makes the Woodsman Pro still. I'm not sure if LT Wright does, but they make similar knives. This one was a gift from my dad, and we bought it, or I was there at the Great Eastern or Great American Outdoor Show, whatever they're calling the sports show. That's what I always called it. That's a big outdoor show in Pennsylvania. We got to talk with the people at the Blind Horse Knives booth, and my dad bought this for me as a birthday present or something like that. And I've used it a lot. I really like it. Now, when I first got it, it has a saber grind. I kept the saber grind, but it was not ground thinly. It would cut, you know, it cut all right, but it didn't cut that well. It definitely didn't slice that well. I couldn't really use it for food prep. Even like for you know, hunting and fishing and stuff, it was a little bit too thickly ground. So I had Josh at Razor Edge Regrinds grind it, and that improved the performance of this knife. I mean, just drastically. You can see that it's ground really thin. It comes to a really nice thin edge, and it makes this knife a great all-around use knife. So it has a really thin edge with this saber grind, but because it is a saber grind, it's still strong. You know, it still has a good amount of steel up at the spine of the knife. It's this super classic utilitarian drop point style blade that, you know, you can use for anything. And then a really nice simple handle, you know, kind of rounded so that it fits in your hand well, really ergonomic, but with a little bit of a guard so you're not going to slip forward. So I really like this knife. This is definitely one of my favorites, and if you can get one like this, again, I'm not sure about the newer knives that they're making now, like the LT Wright and the Battle Horse knives, if they are ground thinner, or if this was just a fluke. But, you know, maybe check it out in person if you can, or you could have it reground. There's lots of people who do regrinds now, and Josh at Razor Edge Knives did a really great job. So I really like this knife, and it's one that I use a lot for all kinds of stuff. I was using it for food prep the other day, and, you know, I've used it for lots of hunting and stuff like that. So a nice knife, and it comes with a really nice leather sheath. So just a classic pouch style sheath, fits well. It's not going to fall out and things like that, but with this little lanyard I made, it's pretty easy to get out. And then finally here, I have the Steel Will, which is, if you have a Pennsylvania accent, kind of a difficult thing to say. I always either say Steel Wheel or Still Will. So it's Steel Will. And I've had a couple of these knives. My brother actually got some of them from Steel Will, and he really likes them. He uses them for hunting, pretty much everything, a lot of like rafting and stuff like that. I got a couple of them, ended up just keeping this one. This is the Romer R300, and the reason I kept this one is because it was relatively inexpensive. I did get a little bit of a discount because I was getting it from my brother, but it is an inexpensive knife anyway, for the size and materials and honestly the construction. It's a well-made knife. So this one, unlike some of the other Steel Will knives, has D2 steel, which I really like D2 steel, especially in a fixed blade. It has a DLC coating, and this is a nice DLC coating. It's not just painted on or anything like that. Very smooth, but very durable. You can see there's some scuffs on it. I tested this knife out a bunch, used it for batoning, chopping, all kind of prying, things like that, and that's all that came of it. So it's not going to scratch easily, it's going to take wear really well, and I found that it's definitely, you know, solid D2 steel, held an edge really well. I was really happy with it. Now, it did come with a really thick edge, but I think for a knife of this size, I think it's 6.5 inches, maybe 7, 6.5, I think, blade length. You know, it's not that unusual to have a knife come with a thicker edge. So, you know, not something that's that uncommon, but just something to be aware of. I did fix up the edge a little bit, but it's nice and sharp now. Definitely going to work for what this kind of knife is for. One thing that really drew me to this knife is the design. So you see it has, again, kind of a drop point style blade. Really useful. I like drop point style blades, especially on fixed blades. But then this handle here is nice because it's nice and simple. You get a really good grip, super ergonomic, fits in the hand well, but you have a good guard, and then also you can move forward onto the forward choil, and I use that a little bit. Definitely helps get some more purchase and things like that. So I'm really happy with the handle. It's kind of like a hard rubber, and it feels really durable. Has a little bit, it's full tang, as you can see, and it comes through the back, so you could use that to like hit things if you needed to or something. I've never really found too much of a use for those, but it's something if you like having that. So a really nice knife. I like the design. I think it's made well, and the sheath was surprisingly nice also. So it's not a Kydex sheath. It's like an injection molded plastic sheath, but it's made well. The knife fits in really well, and it comes with this kind of back plate thing that has some straps to attach to your belt. You could definitely also have the option of using whatever other kind of attachment system you like on here, because it does have these rivets and open areas. So another nice fixed blade here, and how I carry this one, it's obviously really big. I actually keep that one in my car just as kind of a backup if for some, you know, weird reason I would need really big knife to break out of my car or to cut a branch that was in the way of the road, which I've had to do. I used to keep an axe in my car, but I've been keeping it in my house recently. You know, this is something I could use for that. And I don't think it's a bad idea to have a knife in your car as long as it's legal, you know, and so just something to keep in mind. I keep this in my car. But so that's all the fixed blades really that I carry. So we're gonna move on to my folding knives, which are all loaded up on the knife roll that my fiance made for me, which has made carrying my knives a lot easier. So it seems like they're not all gonna fit in a frame, but these are pretty much all the knives that I regularly carry. I do carry some of those other ones that I was talking about every now and then, like the Rendezvous knives and my office knives from GEC and Queen, and things like that. These are pretty much all the ones I carry. Now I do have a couple that are either being modded currently or at Great Eastern Cutlery, things like that. I'll talk about that. But to start out, let's start with the modern knives. So this is my Zero Tolerance 0561 Hinderer design. As you can see, it's one of the earlier Hinderer collaborations with Zero Tolerance. It's in LMAX. And this is one of my favorite knives. I've actually had a few of these. I ended up selling one of them to my brother, and you know, he really likes it. It's a little bit different version, but really cool knife for a few reasons. One thing that I really like about this knife that I wanted to mention first is the fact that the blade stop is also a functional thumb stud. So you, excuse me. So you do have the option of the flipper, which works great. It's on ball bearing pivots, so super smooth. It's always been smooth. I haven't really had to work on it at all. As you can see, it drops closed. And then you can also use the thumb stud if you want to open it a little slower. I mean, you could definitely flick it open with the thumb stud, but if you do want to open it a little slower, you can use the thumb stud, which it's nice to have those functional thumb studs as the blade stops. On the 056 6, I think it is. The other Hinderer designed flipper, the blade stopper are somewhat functional, but much less so than this. So again here, this one has a really nice drop point style blade. So you can see it has the kind of well done swedge there, a flat saber grind, and really nice utilitarian drop point style blade. I found that it's, excuse me, I'm having like a tickle in my throat. I found that it's really useful. You can use it for pretty much anything. I've thought about having this reground to a Spyderco grind, which is a hollow grind here and then a flat grind up at the tip. I'm thinking about having Eric Loreno of Loreno Knives. He's a custom knife maker in Pennsylvania. Do that, and I think it'll make it kind of, really cool, almost custom style knife. But it's a titanium frame lock. You've probably seen them if you're watching this video, but really nice 3D machining on the frame lock side. Kind of flat earth tan G10 handle scale there on this side. Excuse me, and has the blade stop, which is something that not too many knives had before these kind of Hinderer collaborations. So it has some upgrades that now are pretty prevalent, but at the time, were kind of unique. So I really like this knife. It's really nice. One unique thing for me about this knife is the only knife that I carry tip down, and it's just because the ergonomics are so much better with the clip setup for tip down carry. With the clip setup how it is, this has super great ergonomics. I mean, it feels really good in any grip. When the clip is tip up, I find that the clip gets in the way of my grip. But I really like this knife. It's definitely a keeper, and it's one that I've used a lot and I'm planning to hold on to. Let's see. I'll do this one here. I actually just traded or just sold my Cold Steel Code 4, which was a really nice knife. Actually, I was a really big fan of it. I thought it's one of the best EDC type knives from Cold Steel. 3.5-inch blade, Tonto, CTS XHP. Excuse me, sorry. Aluminum handle scales, all that. Really nice knife, but I got a great deal on a Cold Steel Talwar XL in CTS XHP, DLC coating, and tan scales. So that's not here yet, but that's on its way. So look out for a 1-minute overview and maybe a knife talk on that video on that knife. But that one I got and replaced the Code 4, which I sold because I bought the Talwar. But this is a Cold Steel Micro Recon Tonto. So they have the Recon line, they have the Micro, small, no, I think they just have a medium, large, and extra large. They have a few sizes of it, but this knife, I got one of these a while back and was really impressed with how easy it is to open for such a small knife. So that's always kind of a hard thing to do, is to design a knife so that it's easy to open one-handed when it's really small. But this one is. You can see that no trouble at all with using the thumb stud to open it. And then the other thing too is that it has a really nice grip actually. It's just a 2-finger grip. So you get your 2 fingers in the choils there, and then your thumb rests right there. And it actually makes for a good grip. You can definitely use this knife. And has the triad lock actually, so you can see that there is a stop pin between the lock bar and the blade, which is probably overkill for a knife of this size, but it's going to be a strong lock. This one sometimes is really smooth on closing and drops closed, but seems like it's not right now. It does have nylon or Teflon, one of the two washers, but a nice knife, really solid, no blade play or anything like that. So if you wanted a kind of an overbuilt tiny knife from Cold Steel, this is a really nice option. You can throw it in your watch pocket. I have a lanyard here, a matching pink lanyard on it, so easy to get to if you have it in a watch pocket. Open it up, and you can have kind of a tactical knife without worrying about it being uncouth or scaring anybody or anything like that. So that's the only Cold Steel I have currently, but by the end of the week I will have the Talwar XL, and I'll do videos on it. Moving on to Spyderco. I have a few Spydercos. I've always really liked Spydercos. I got into knives for a few reasons. My dad always had knives. He always carried a knife. He would bring home knives from when he went on like business trips and stuff as gifts. But then also my uncle, who was a Navy SEAL, always carried a Spyderco Police, the stainless model, and actually still does. I saw that he carried a Spyderco and thought they're probably good. So I've always liked and had Spyderco knives. This is the Spyderco Roadie. This is actually red. This is the red version. It looks almost orange, but this was a gift from my, at the time, girlfriend. Again, the same person who made the knife roll. So she's not a knife person, but she definitely is supportive of my interest in knives. And it's one that I really like for a few reasons. One, it brings together Spyderco and the slip joints. So this is a slip it, is what Spyderco calls it. And if it will focus, the reason they call it a slip it is because of that. So you see there's a little notch right there. And that actually kind of stops in there and makes a little bit of a half stop. And then there's another little notch there that makes it so that it's a little bit harder. It kind of has a detent, so that unlike a normal slip joint where you just, it's kind of just the spring tension, this is a little bit of a detent. So it's not gonna close really. It's a little bit harder or less likely that it's gonna accidentally close. So that's a cool little, innovation. I wouldn't say the Spyderco is probably the first people to think of that, but Spyderco does a good job of it. A little bit of history on this knife. There was a time where the TSA or whatever the flying, federation or whatever it is, was going to allow knives with certain characteristics within certain, restrictions or whatever on planes again. And this was Spyderco's design. It had to have a non-molded handle, whatever that means. It had to be two-hand opening, no lock, under a certain length, all kinds of, kind of silly stuff. But they actually went back on it. I think the TSA lobbied against it. So, it never went through, but Spyderco went through with making this knife. And, it's called the Roadie because you're on the road, or as a roadie, you need to, use a knife, and you might be flying and stuff like that, traveling. But it's kind of a legal everywhere knife, so it's something you can put in your pocket, watch pocket again with this one, and not have to worry about it at all. This one, I did drop the kick on a little bit so that the tip wouldn't be too close to proud, and it's definitely not going to cut your finger or anything like that. It has a little indent. It does have the Spyderco trademark hole, but then it has an indent to open it. Looks a little bit like a toucan beak or something like that, I think, but it cuts well. I've put a nice sharp edge on it. It's N690 cobalt steel, which is a nice steel, very, very stainless, which is nice for something like this. Takes an edge well and everything. And it has that steel because it's made in Maniago, Italy, which is where Spyderco has some of its knives made, especially the slip-it knives. There are some nice knives being made there. Some other companies are there and things like that. So just a nice little knife. You can definitely, grip it, get, in the choil a little bit there. The choil is pretty small, but you can use it. Definitely a nice knife if you want something that's going to be legal pretty much everywhere in the world, and still be able to do some actual cutting with it. So that's the Spyderco Roadie. You can see you can put a little lanyard on it, so it's easier to get out of your watch pocket or whichever pocket you have it in. And it's a nice little knife, good action, nice snap, and everything like that. So moving on to, I guess, we'll go on to the other knife that my fiance gave me. This is the Spyderco Ouroboros. I recently did a video on it. This is a knife that I really wanted for a long time, but for a few reasons I didn't get. But it's a really cool design. So you can see that it has this really interesting handle. It's real thick here towards the bottom, gets real thin, has a choil, and then just goes right into the blade. And the blade is kind of a spear point. I would almost call it a Skinner blade, to be honest, like moving towards an Ulu style blade. And it's a useful blade. I've used it for all kinds of things. I've been carrying it a lot. And I found that, this handle, I thought it might not be, but it's really ergonomic. You can get a nice grip all the way back like this. You can pinch up like this, and then you can also pinch here or even come all the way here. This is a grip that's really useful for skinning and things like that. And I think, I haven't used this knife for it, but I think this knife would be a great skinning knife as long as the compression lock mechanism didn't give you trouble. Which is another thing about this knife. The handle shape, I think, kind of almost requires using the compression lock. And this is the only knife I have right now. I've had some other knives with the compression lock, but it's an interesting lock. It's kind of like a liner lock on the back of the knife, or the handle instead of the front. And it has this tab that goes between a stop pin and the tang of the blade. Makes it really strong. No blade play at all or anything like that. And really smooth also. So this one is drop closed sometimes. It's not right now. I've been using it a lot and stuff like that. Getting kind of dirty. But nice knife. Some people have complained about the fact that it does have Teflon or I think nylon washers. And yeah, definitely this is a more expensive knife. It's around $185. I think that it should have phosphor bronze washers. If not for any real increase in performance that they would give, just for the fact that people see them as higher end. So not sure why they went with the nylon washers, but like I say, I don't think it affects the action that much. You can see it's real easy to open and close. Another thing there, it is made in Seki City, Japan. Where is that? There it is. Good factory. The Spyderco's Japan factory makes nice knives, and has VG10 again for $185 around their dollars. Could have S30V. I think it probably should, but not something I care about too much because again, this was a gift from my girlfriend at the time, and really like it, really appreciate it. And again, she's not into knives, so it's nice that she's paying attention to everything like that. So this is definitely, obviously a forever keeper, one that I love to carry and use because, really easy to open and close, fun to use, and a really unique, interesting design that makes it more utilitarian than you might think by how it looks. Let's see, moving on to another gifted knife. This is the Spyderco Native 5 fluted titanium, and this was a gift from my older brother. He gave this to me for Christmas, kind of out of the blue. I ended up, I really appreciated it, so I gave him a titanium UKPK, Spyderco UKPK, or United Kingdom pen knife, if you want to say the whole name. But definitely was kind of blown away by this one. This is a really nice knife and was, kind of a surprise. Has a lot of really cool things. So first of all, the CPM S35 VN steel, they have made Native 5s in more high-end or more exotic steels than that now, but at the time this was the biggest upgrade that they had. I believe they might have had an S90V at that point, but definitely an upgrade from S30V. I find that this steel is pretty easy to sharpen, holds an edge really well. I've used it quite a bit. You can see it does kind of show it a little bit because I've sharpened it a lot. But this knife is super solid. It's always been really smooth. You can see it's drop closed, but really smooth to open. You can definitely flick it open. I didn't quite get it there, but flick it open. Ooh, that's not going well. Let's see, give it one more time. Oh, it's not flicking right now, but I'm gonna get it to work. It's not working. Anyway, normally you can flick it open, so sorry I kind of struggled with that, but I just wanted to show that it is really smooth, and I guess you'll just have to take my word for it. You can see that it drops closed, so definitely smooth. I think just because my hands are in a weird position from the camera, I couldn't get it to flick open. But really nice knife. I really love the Native line. You can get a good grip down in the main grip area, even with my wide hands. Feels good because it's designed really well, and then you can also choke up, and again, you can choke up like this if you need to. The back lock is really well made. Even through a whole bunch of use, it has no play. I have taken it apart a couple times, but I can get it back to where it has no play side to side or front and back. Super solid. And then The fluted titanium handles are just really great looking. This is a knife that even if you're not a knife person, I think a lot of people who even don't really like knives can look at this knife and appreciate that it's a well-made, good-looking knife. So a knife that I've carried to like weddings and things like that, and just overall a really great knife that I'm definitely going to keep forever, not only because it's a gift from my brother, but because it's a really nice knife. So last Spyderco here, this is the Spyderco Chokwe. This is one, I've had like 4 or 5 Chokways, and it's funny, now they sell for like really high prices. I think I bought this one for $90. I had another one that I had a Steve Ketchen custom maple burl scale that looked just incredible. I ended up selling it in a big sell-off that I did, which was silly, but oh well, live and learn, right? But really cool knife. I really like this knife, and I think it's great to see that people are kind of coming around to it, but too bad it happened after it's out of production. So this is part of Spyderco's Ethnic series, so it's based on a traditional African fixed blade, and with the kind of later than the design of this knife, but current Sea-Axe, or however you say the Viking or Norse, and also Anglo-Saxon style fixed blade with the straight clip. It's very, very reminiscent of that. I think that's just because it's a knife blade design that works. And one thing about a knife blade design like this, like the Chokwe and like a Sea-Axe, is that they continue to keep their blade shape through many, many sharpenings. So as you sharpen this knife, it's just going to keep looking like having the same blade shape that it currently does. It's just going to keep this straight and start to curve up towards the spine a little bit. So this is a knife that you're going to be able to use a long, long time, which is one of the traits that I'm sure the people throughout history who were making these truly working knives were looking for. So a knife that after 10 sharpenings it didn't have a weird blade shape. So really appreciate that about the Chokwe. It has lots of straight edge and then a little bit of a belly, which makes it great for pulling cuts and things like that. Just a great design, really easy to open. This one's super smooth, nice big Spyderco round hole. It is a frame lock. One thing that is interesting about this knife and I like, compared to other frame locks, there's actually a lot of material left there. So it I think it's going to be a really strong knife also. Never really had too many problems with this knife. I've had it a good number of years. Really smooth, easy to open. This one definitely will flick open. So a great knife. Another thing about this knife, it's very, very ergonomic because the handle's so simple. So it has these 2 holes, which are kind of like a very recognizable part of the Chokwe traditional fixed blade. But because it has such a simple handle, you can grip it however you want, and it's going to feel good in your hand. And I do have a Casey Lynch, I think it's called Northwest Knife Company now, or Northwest something, but Casey Lynch titanium pocket clip from when he was selling them on Blade Forums. This makes this knife carry really well in the pocket. So that's, oh no, I guess we do have one more Spyderco. So this is the Spyderco Resilience. It's one of Spyderco's budget knives made in China, but I got it because I found it in a package deal for a really nice price on Instagram. Excuse me, sorry. It's a liner lock, but it does have good G10. It has nice G10 handle scales, pillar construction. It has 8CR13 MOV steel, so pretty much equivalent to AUS 8 steel. Pretty normal budget knife steel. Nothing great, definitely nowhere near a super steel, but a workable steel. It sharpens super easily and takes a relatively nice edge. Now one thing, I think there is a little bit of staining going on in this knife, haven't carried it in a bit, is it will rust some if you don't take care of it, maybe put a little oil on it after the video. Really well built for the price. So these sell, you can actually get them at you can definitely get them at Amazon, but you can even get them at Walmart for like a little bit under $50. So a really well-made knife for the price. Easy to open, great ergonomics because of the simple handle and it's big, and just a really large, well-made knife. Great work knife. Slices well because of the kind of leaf-shaped blade, almost a drop point, but kind of a leaf-shaped blade. Just a really nice budget knife from Spyderco. So I'm kind of running out of time, gotta get to work, but I'm gonna try to run through these. Next, have the multi-tools. So I actually lost a Victorinox Huntsman and a Victorinox, let's see, Manager Light, I think it was called. Yeah, but it's like a mini Swiss Army knife. When I had a bag stolen recently. So missing two of the ones that I was carrying pretty frequently. But for a while I was carrying this Victorinox Swiss Card Light in my wallet, actually for a really long time, a couple years. Just stopped recently just to see if I didn't feel like I was using it all that much. It's kind of a backup, but seeing if I end up needing it. But it's cool because it has a light, it has scissors, it has a tiny little blade. You can see it has a little roller there, has a magnifying glass, it has a bunch of screwdriver heads, it has tweezers, and it has a little pen. It did have also a pin, but that kept falling out, so I took it out. And it's not that thick, right? So you can put this in your wallet. It really doesn't bother you that much. I found that it didn't bother me really at all, but it does, it's about 3 or 4, I'd say 4 cards thick. So that's an option if you want to have a super backup multi-tool in your wallet. Another one here, these Leathermans, so 2 Leathermans, the Leatherman Squirt and Leatherman Style, are both relatively new because both of them, I had them before and they broke. So this one is cool. It's about as small as I think a Leatherman or a multi-tool with pliers can get and still be useful. So it has spring-loaded pliers, which is really nice. It has a Chisel Grind blade, which, it's a small blade, but it works just as well as like a Swiss Army knife classic blade. It has a metal file, which is actually pretty nice. The metal file has worked well for me. It has a small screwdriver. You can also use this to pry. It has a large screwdriver. It has a bottle opener, but this bottle opener is too small to work super well. You can work it, but you have to actually get in the like the folded part of a bottle cap to use it. So it works, but not the most easy to use bottle opener. And then scissors. So it really packs a lot of useful tools into a tiny little space there. This is something that you could throw this in your watch pocket again, or even on your keys. I've carried it on my keys and I've carried it in my watch pocket. And you have a pretty useful little tool without taking up much space. So this is the Leatherman Style, and the interesting thing about this knife is it's again meant to be TSA approved. So no blade on this one. It is a little bit longer than the Squirt, but it has pliers, spring loaded again. This one's also new, and it has a carabiner up here, which works as a bottle opener. This works better than that bottle opener by far. But you can attach this to your keys. It has a file and screwdriver, which works well. You can also use it to pry. Nice little file, definitely works and everything. It has tweezers, which I think tweezers actually are a relatively useful tool, so it's nice to have those because it doesn't take up any extra space. And then finally it has scissors. The scissors broke on the last one. I'm not so sure about this style of spring on the scissors, but whatever. With that in mind, the nice thing about these is that Leatherman does have a great warranty. They have a 25-year warranty. I don't know how they track how long it's existed. I think that's just so that like if the product is no longer in production, they don't have to replace it. But really nice warranty. They will fix you up and everything. So this is a Victorinox Farmer. One of my favorite multi-tools. This one recently got kind of dinged up, so I tried to polish it out a little bit, but these are always really well made. So they always have I mean, they're the judge upon which other slip joints are, you know, the pull is judged. So this is considered a 5. Usually super smooth, no play. I've never had one with play from Victorinox. I had a Wenger that had a little bit, but, you know, I think they're made in a different factory. So it has a nice, good sized main blade. It has an awl, which I find to be really useful, especially this style awl, rather than the awl on the plastic handle knives. This is an A-LOX handled farmer. It has a saw. This saw is really useful. They've really done a good job making a useful saw in this size. I used this saw not on this knife, but on another Swiss Army knife, like extensively, more than I would have liked to be honest, on a hunting trip last year, maybe 2 years ago. I think it was last year. And it worked really well. And they also will sharpen them if you send them in. And then it has a bottle opener, a wire stripper, large screwdriver, or you can pry with that, and a small screwdriver and can opener. So just a really classic multi-tool. I mean, you know, it doesn't get too much more classic than the Swiss Army knife, and Victorinox is the, you know, the brand of Swiss Army knife. They also have a good warranty. I sent in a friend's knife and mine that he dropped his and it just like shattered, the scale shattered. Mine, the tip broke off of one of the knives. To be honest, I was using it to like, it was a long time. I actually used it for a long time with the tip broken. But I was like in the dark and had to like cut a piece of plastic or something and it snapped. But anyway, they have a good warranty. So that's something to keep in mind. And I actually am going to have to do this video in 2 parts, both because it is now almost 47 minutes in, and also because I have to go to work. So I'm gonna leave the slip joints for another video. So stay tuned. I'll probably upload them separately. I do have a lot of slip joints that I carry, so it'll take even longer than the rest of the knives, I think. So we'll get to those later, but that's an update or a little bit of an overview on the knives that I do carry. After I do the slip joints that I carry, I will do an overview of the knives that I don't carry too much also, and hopefully I'll get the knives that I have being modded by Nick of Birdvis Knives back by then. And I'm having him modify a Queen large hunter in amber carved stag bone to put canvas micarta on it and straighten it out and stuff. And then also a Great Eastern Cutlery number 25 that was kind of tearing apart. It was a store model. He's gonna make it a shadow pattern. So that's gonna be cool. And hopefully by the time I make the video, the second or third video, I will have those. And also the Manix XL that, oh, by the way, I didn't mention with the modern knives. I did have a Spyderco Police 4, really like that design. Sal mentioned, Sal Glasser, the owner and founder of Spyderco, mentioned that he was planning to make a lightweight version of the Spyderco Police 4, which would have FRN scales and probably a different steel. And I'm really looking forward to that. I hope that they come through on that because I really, really love the handle shape of the Spyderco Police 4. It's so slim, so ergonomic. I really like that it's a backlock. The blade shape is about as perfect as it can get for everyday carry, just a general use knife. And it's about as big as a pocket knife can be and still be, you know, really practical to carry all the time. With that said, the Tall War XL that I have in the mail, coming in the mail, is bigger, but I ended up trading the Spyderco Police 4 for a Manix XL DLC coated. One, because I haven't had a Manix in a long time and I'd like to try one out again, and 2, because the K390 blade steel on the Police 4, really nice steel, held an edge well, really tough. I liked it, but I think in general on modern knives, I do prefer to have stainless steel blades. Now, you know, that's not the only reason that I got rid of it, but something that I would like to try another modern knife with a carbon or non-stainless steel blade to see if I, you know, can enjoy it and get into it. But anyway, I did have a Police 4 that I carried a lot this year and some, I think last year up until recently. But that's all of my fixed blades and modern knives and multi-tools. So stay tuned for the next one, which will be my slip joints. And if you've enjoyed this video, please like it. If you have any questions or comments, definitely feel free to leave them. I'm always happy to reply if I can, and look forward to seeing what you all have to say. And then finally, if you want to get notifications for my other videos, like the ones coming up on my other knives that I carry, go ahead and subscribe. It will let you get those notifications. Plus, it'll show me that people are enjoying the videos and stuff. So, you know, if you do want to get those notifications, subscribe, and also check out my other videos. I have over 100 other knife videos on, you know, various knives like these, including a lot of these. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to go out and do good.